16 years old, and in one single strike, he has written his name into Liverpool's history, not as a prospect, not as a promise, but as a match winner when the title race demanded a hero.
It's difficult to create history at Liverpool because the club's got such great history, but for a young man, and listen, it's been a weekend of young players coming in. You obviously think of what Arsenal had with Darwin coming on, but there's been something about this lad in pre-season where Liverpool supporters are getting really excited. And Luis Diaz has moved on. He was the competition with Cody Gakpo on the left. And there's a feeling of Liverpool need to replace Luis Diaz. But what do you do when you've got a young player like this? That is definitely going to be in the minds now of the Liverpool hierarchy in terms of what we do in the next week. Because when someone has an impact like that as such a young player, that's just not enough now.
Rio Ngumoha stepped onto the pitch with the fearlessness of a veteran, but the innocence of a boy, and in that blend of purity and courage, he produced a moment that shook St James Park to its foundations.
But you know what? You know what I liked about him, Rio, is as soon as he came on and he had the ball, he went straight away to play 1v1. There was a 1v, even 3, he didn't care. He took the ball at desire, will, and he got his reward at the end, being high and wide, and the awareness of the team, bodies between the lines. But again, I'm with you. You don't have to touch a ball to have an assist for me. What he did, he moved everybody, not everybody obviously, but the right back away to make sure that he could free Rio. So beside there has to be his assist, or at least 2 assists.
It wasn't just a goal, it was the kind of goal that bends destiny.
We've got so long in terms of knowing what's going on.
Right.
It may just be a second, but that's a long time when you know the ball's coming. We all could see the dummy was coming. He knows it's coming. And to have so long and be so inexperienced and to hold your composure and actually hit it perfectly in terms of the strike and hit it perfectly into the right place because the goalkeeper's coming across the other way, so you're never going to be able to get it. It just made it look so easy. And so the composure for somebody of 16 years of age.
Yep.
The kind of goal that turns a teenager into a symbol.
And he's 16 years of age and he sat down and said, I want to win a Ballon d'Or one day. I want to go down as a legend of football, one of the best to ever do it.
The kind of goal that changes a title race forever. The clock was dying, the nerves were screaming, the title slipping away, until Rio touched the ball, struck it clean, and sent Liverpool back to life with one moment of pure electricity.
It can happen so easily. That's my point. Wembley Stadium, the big moment, skies this thing over the bar, here we are, St James's Park, you're on the ropes for a good 30-35 minutes in the second half. Finally you create something and you're under no pressure, and it was a terrific finish from the youngster, so composed, and obviously gets the 3 points. But it's something, as Stevie said, you expect from an experienced player, right? And that could easily have been a shank or something that went miles over the bar. So fair play to the young man.
St James Park fell silent. Slot roared, teammates surrounded him, and somewhere in that chaos the world realised this was no ordinary debut. This was the birth of a star. Football has seen the rise of teenage monsters before. Max Daumann in Arsenal.
Daumann goes down, referee has a think, penalty!
Lamine Yamal in Barcelona. Franco Mastantuono in Argentina, and now in Real Madrid.
Mastantuono!
But now there is another name that joins this sacred list, Rio Ngumoha. He is only 16, yet he already carries the aura of a £100 million player. The kind of aura you cannot buy, the kind of aura you either have or you don't. Liverpool didn't pay a single penny for him, but what he gave them on that night was priceless 3 points against Newcastle, a heartbeat, and belief in a season where nothing can be wasted. This was not luck. This was not a fluke. This was a boy standing in the fire and choosing not to burn. Every fan will remember the silence before his strike, and the eruption after it, the feeling that they had just witnessed something that will be told for decades. Rio didn't just score a winner, he announced himself to the Premier League with the authority of a man twice his age. And yet, his shirt still looks oversized, his face still carries the softness of youth. A reminder that greatness doesn't wait for adulthood. Liverpool fans have seen legends rise from their academy before, but this time it feels different, as if football itself has gifted them another miracle. 16 years old and he already belongs to the highest level, the pressure of titles, the roar of Anfield, the spotlight of the Premier League. And while rivals tremble at the thought of Yamal, Daumann or Mastantuono, they now have to face the truth. Liverpool's crown jewel has arrived earlier than anyone expected. Rio Ngumoa is not the future, he is the present. And when the dust settles, people will say, Liverpool didn't find him, destiny sent him. This is the rise of Rio Ngumoa, and nothing in football will ever be the same again. Last week, the headlines belonged to Federico Chiesa. But this week, the football world turned its eyes to someone barely old enough to drive, a 16-year-old boy who carried Liverpool's destiny on his shoulders.
Composure, the ball is coming well on the ground, so both side knows it's there, but you know, you're like, oh, if I score, this is going to be amazing. It slow down. It bounces a bit, and then
Rio Ngumoa to the rescue. He wasn't supposed to be the protagonist. He was thrown on in the dying minutes, almost as a desperate roll of the dice. But sometimes the smallest spark sets the whole stadium on fire. The stage was heavy. The points were slipping away. Liverpool looked set to waste a 2-goal lead with a man advantage, and yet the teenager walked into the chaos with ice in his veins. The ball came in, so Boschlei let it run, and suddenly Rio was there, standing unmarked at the back post, with the freedom of Tyneside and all the pressure of the world pressing on his chest. For most players, the moment would have swallowed them. The weight of the shirt, the roar of the crowd, the silence before the strike. But Rio didn't flinch. He curled it past Nick Pope like he had done it 1,000 times before. Anfield may have been miles away, but the explosion of celebration felt like a title won. Liverpool had snatched victory from the jaws of despair once again. And this time it was a child, not a superstar, who delivered salvation. And the truth is, this wasn't out of nowhere. His pre-season had already whispered promises. 3 goals, 2 assists, a teenager playing with men, and making it look effortless. He had already proved he could belong now. He proved he could decide.
So they were so close to scoring the 3-2, but we stood strong. Virgil, Ali, Ibu, they helped us a lot in these moments. And then when at last, after 4 or 5 minutes, we got the ball in a neutral position, I think we got a free kick. I could bring the both of them in. And it's of course special for him to score a goal in a moment like this.
In that single strike, Ngumoa crossed the line between talent in the academy and star of the first team. He is not just a boy with potential. He is the boy who turned a Premier League match into his playground. Just 4 days before turning 17, when most kids are worried about exams or birthdays, Rio Ngumoa was stepping onto the pitch in the 96th minute at St James Park, and Liverpool's title hopes holding their breath. It wasn't an accident. This was a manager's gamble. Arne Slot choosing trust over fear, handing the final kick of destiny to a boy barely old enough to buy his own boots. And yet, for those who had been watching him closely, it wasn't a surprise. Pre-season had already told the story. 3 goals, 2 assists, and 2 of those strikes were solo runs that left defenders chasing shadows. A teenager showing the arrogance of brilliance. Liverpool fans had already whispered it in pubs, on forums, in songs half sung under their breath. This kid was special. But now he has turned whispers into thunder. His game is raw, yes, but it is terrifyingly complete. Direct when he runs.
And Ngumoa. That Elliott continues.
Dynamic when he dribbles. Carrying a maturity in his decisions that no 16-year-old should possess. That is why Liverpool moved fast, poaching him from Chelsea before the Blues even realised what they had let slip, and placing him into a system that doesn't just develop stars, it forges legends. And make no mistake, the story of Rio Ngumoa has only just begun. Rio Ngumoa was born in Newham, East London, and like so many kids with a ball at their feet, he dreamed of Chelsea blue. At just 8 years old, he joined the club's academy, and by 15, he was already playing for the under-21s, a meteoric rise that had scouts and coaches whispering his name as the next jewel of Cobham. He was fast, he was fearless, and he was English, ticking every box for a club desperate to find its next homegrown superstar. Even John Terry, a legend carved into Chelsea's history, saw him up close and called it out. top player. But football is cruel and loyalty is fragile. While Chelsea admired him, Liverpool acted. The Reds didn't just knock on the door, they stormed it, convincing Ngumoha to leave London behind in the summer of 2024 and begin again in Merseyside. What made him jump? It wasn't money, it wasn't fame, it was the pathway. Liverpool have built a reputation for turning kids into stars, from Trent Alexander-Arnold to Curtis Jones. And Rio knew this was a place where the first team isn't a dream, it's a destination. And when Arne Slot took over from Jurgen Klopp, the message became even louder. Youth would be given its chance, but only if they were ready to seize it. Ngumoha was ready.
You already start to laugh because you're thinking, for 2 months I only ask him about new players. And I constantly told you guys how many quality players we already had.
He started quietly with the under-18s, but within months his rise was impossible to stop. His potential wasn't just promise anymore, it was presence. By December he was named on the bench for a Carabao Cup trip to Southampton. Weeks later, in January, he didn't just play, he started becoming Liverpool's youngest ever player to begin a competitive fixture, rewriting history against Accrington Stanley in the FA Cup.
And Gamoa. That Elliott continued.
From then on, his life was split in two, part academy, part first team, 1 foot in youth football, the other stepping into the fire of Anfield. And in that tension, in that double life, Rio forged himself into the star who is now shaking the Premier League. Liverpool didn't just sign a boy from Chelsea, they stole a £100 million winger for free. And in the process, they may have changed the future of English football forever. When Liverpool boarded the plane for their pre-season tour of Hong Kong and Japan, few could have predicted that the headline act would not be Mohamed Salah or Virgil van Dijk, but a 16-year-old winger wearing the smile of youth and the weight of expectation. Luis Diaz's departure to Bayern Munich had opened a void on the left wing, and into that space stepped Rio Ngumoha, a boy offered the perfect opportunity and determined not to let it slip through his fingers. And he didn't just take the chance, he grabbed it, ripped it open and set it on fire. Against Yokohama F. Marinos, an athletic club, he scored goals that players twice his age would envy, solo runs that lit up the pitch, and reminded everyone why Chelsea had fought so hard to keep him. In fact, Anfield itself witnessed the madness. Within just 5 minutes against Athletic, Rio had scored and assisted, sending the Kop into raptures, as if a prophecy was unfolding in front of them. Even his teammates couldn't believe it. Ben Doak told LFC TV with a grin and disbelief in his voice. That guy is ridiculous. He's going to have some career ahead of him. So sharp and so talented. If he can keep going the way he is going, anything is possible. The fans were already convinced. The teammates were already sold. But Arne Slot had to be the calm voice in the storm, trying to protect a boy from being drowned by his own rising tide. Rio Ngumoha isn't just another winger, he's a live wire, the kind of player who bursts into life with explosive acceleration, magnetic close control, and the fearless confidence to face defenders 1v1 without a second thought. What separates him from the rest is not only his speed or flair, but his decision-making in the chaos of the final third, where he seems to always know when to pass, when to shoot, and when to win a foul, turning every touch into something that feels like destiny rather than luck. The numbers back it up in black and white. At England's under-16 level, he averaged nearly 13 dribbles per match, completing 64% of them, with the audacity of a street footballer and the efficiency of a seasoned pro, while producing almost a goal contribution every 90 minutes at Chelsea. That is why Chelsea trusted him with first-team training at just 15 years old, and why John Terry himself couldn't hide his disappointment when the prodigy chose to walk away and start again at Liverpool. Once in Merseyside, the madness didn't stop in the UEFA Youth League. He ranked among the top 5 players in dribbles attempted per 90 minutes, averaging nearly 11 per match, numbers that belong to a showman rather than a boy who hadn't even turned 17. But here's the terrifying twist. He didn't just attempt dribbles, he completed them with a staggering 60% success rate, far higher than names like Liberali at 36.8% or Makadu at 51.7%, proving his flair wasn't chaos but calculated destruction. That is why this kid is one of the most efficient dribblers of his age group in Europe. Because it's one thing to take risks, but it's another to bend the odds in your favour every single time. And yet, even in all this brilliance, there is still a flaw waiting to be fixed. His end product has not fully arrived. With no goals in last season's Youth League, despite carrying an expected goals of 0.52 across 429 minutes. A reminder that he is still a boy, learning to turn danger into destiny. For some, that gap might be a warning, a sign of work still to be done, but for Liverpool fans, it is simply the final step before he transforms from wonder kid into something truly unstoppable. So just how good is Rio Ngumoha? At 5 feet 9 inches, he's built perfectly for chaos, compact enough to spin away from challenges, agile enough to glide through tight spaces, and balanced enough to never lose momentum once he's moving. Yes, he's a direct winger, but there's artistry in how he does it. Those lightning shifts of weight, the clever feints, the explosive half step that sends fullbacks chasing shadows before they even realise he's gone. What makes him terrifying is that he isn't reliant on pure sprint speed. Over long distances, his pace is average, but it doesn't matter. His weapon is the glide, slipping between tackles as if he's always one step ahead, using unpredictability and sharp footwork to draw defenders in and break them apart. Opponents don't risk facing him alone. One defender becomes 2, sometimes 3, and yet even then his presence opens the game. By attracting that many bodies, Ngumoha creates space for Liverpool's centre forwards to run into, bending entire backlines out of shape with nothing more than a dribble. His dribbling is deception at its finest, timing, disguise, and that eerie ability to read defenders before they commit. Watch his body mechanics. Low centre of gravity, spidery legs snapping like elastic bands, almost Mbappe-like in the way they extend and snatch the ball away at the last second. Defenders try to crowd him out, it doesn't work. He squeezes through gaps that barely exist, bursting into the box when it looks physically impossible. Even doubled up, like against the Netherlands, he forces his way between markers with sheer conviction. And the genius is in how he sets them up. He lures full-backs into biting early, makes every shimmy feel like the real move, and then slips through with a single touch, half a gap, half a second, and he's behind them, with teammates flooding forward. But Rio isn't only chaos, he's chess. He doesn't just see the final pass, he sees the 2 or 3 moves that lead up to it. He knows when to slow down, when to accelerate, and how to pull defenders just far enough out of shape to open invisible doors for his teammates. Even under pressure, even in tight spaces, there's calmness in his game. He looks like he has already mapped the pitch before the ball touches his foot, always finding that killer ball at exactly the right time. One outrageous example, with 2 defenders crashing down on him, he fired an outside of the foot pass through a gap that didn't exist, perfectly into the stride of a third-man runner. No hesitation, just confidence, precision, and execution. His passing isn't flashy for the sake of it, it's deliberate. Sharp ground passes to accelerate play, clever clipped balls into space when runners peel away, and always the right weight, never rushed, never reckless. And yet, here lies the one question mark. His end product. The raw numbers show it. For all the danger he creates, the goals aren't there yet. 3 in Premier League 2, none in the UEFA Youth League last season, and an expected goals that whispers potential more than proof. But then you see. Flashes are frightening. A sharp one-touch finish drilled across goal. A disguised strike with minimal backlift that leaves the keeper frozen. A movement timed perfectly to slip into the gap between centre-back and full-back, followed by the cleanest of finishes. It isn't volume yet, but the technique is already world-class. With consistency in his shot selection and decision-making, those flashes could turn into firestorms. And if that happens, Liverpool won't just have a dribbler, a creator or a showman. They'll have a complete forwarder boy who can tear you apart and finish the job himself. Hugo Ekitike wrapped his arms around Rio Ngumoha, lifting the teenager into the night sky like a trophy. Around them, Liverpool's senior players piled in, embracing the boy who had just written his name into the record books with one ruthless strike. At 16 years and 361 days, Ngumoha became Liverpool's youngest ever goalscorer in the Premier League, breaking a record that had stood since Ben Woodburn struck against Leeds almost a decade ago. For context, Michael Owen was 17 years and 143 days when he first scored. Rio did it even earlier, 4 minutes on the pitch. 1 chance, 1 finish. That was all it took. Deep into stoppage time, with Liverpool's title push hanging in the balance, he arrived at the back post and swept a first-time shot past Nick Pope with a confidence that defied his age. The celebration said it all. Rio sprinted towards the corner flag, fists pumping, face lit with disbelief and joy, before being mobbed by teammates who knew they had just witnessed history. It was so decisive, so cold-blooded that it reminded everyone of Wayne Rooney's first goal in the Premier League. And here's the twist: Ngumoha scored his debut goal just 1 day older than Rooney had done all those years ago. No wonder Liverpool have ignored rumours linking them with Lyons' Malik Fofana or PSG's Bradley Barcola. After selling Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich, they deliberately chose not to sign another left winger. Why? Because they believe Ngumoha is special and his pathway must remain clear. Arne Slot summed it up perfectly. Rio can finish really well for his age. How firm his shot was, you don't see that often for a 16-year-old. I heard someone in the dressing room say afterwards, "I'd have taken that ball and had a first touch and then finished it off." But he's so confident, and that's what I like. It took courage from Slot too. Not many managers would throw a 16-year-old into a frantic away game at St James's Park, with the scoreline tied 2-2 and the crowd baying for blood. But Slot trusted him, and Rio repaid that trust in gold. The move itself was a masterclass in collective execution. Dominik Szoboszlai, filling in at right back due to injuries, made the decisive run that dragged Tino Livramento out of position. Mohamed Salah's low cross came in, so Szoboszlai dummied it with selfless brilliance, and suddenly Ngumoha was free at the far post. One strike later, history was made. Liverpool, no Chelsea, will still receive a tribunal fee for losing Ngumoha last summer, but whatever the price ends up being, it already looks like the bargain of the decade. A boy who left Cobham because he believed in opportunity has found his stage at Anfield, and on his debut, he lit it up brighter than anyone could have dreamed. And now the comparisons come flooding in, because Ngumoha's arrival feels just as seismic as when Lamine Yamal destroyed Tottenham in the Gamper, or when Max Dowman ran riot against Leeds. 3 teenagers, 3 revolutions, each of them shouting the same truth: football has entered the age of diamonds. Rio Ngumoha has announced himself not just to Liverpool, but to the world, and this is only the beginning. The